The paint was still drying on the three-bedroom house I'd just finished building for my girlfriend's family outside Chiang Mai. You could still smell it. That fresh, clean smell of a brand new home. My home, I thought. Or at least the start of my new life. We're talking a $45,000 project, and that was just materials and the local crew. My time, my sweat, my expertise. That was all free. A gift. All of it paid for with my cash, from my life savings. The night before, we'd had the housewarming. The whole family was there, dozens of people I'd never met, all smiling, all patting me on the back. My girlfriend, Nok, was beaming. Her mother kept calling me Papa, telling everyone through translated whispers that I was their hero, the man who saved their family. For the first time in years, since the divorce, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I felt seen. The very next morning, that feeling was gone. Her mother sat me down at the new kitchen table, the one I'd assembled myself just days before. She poured me a cup of tea, and she had this big, warm smile on her face. Nok sat next to me, ready to translate, and her mother started talking. She said how beautiful the house was, how strong, and then she explained that her son, my girlfriend's brother, also needed a house. And since I'd done such a wonderful job on this one, they were all hoping I could get started on building his next month. I looked at Nok, expecting her to laugh, to say it was a bad joke, but she was just nodding along, smiling right with her mother. And that's when I finally understood. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't building a future. I wasn't their papa. I was just the bank. And my account apparently was still open for withdrawals. To understand how a man like me gets to that kitchen table, you have to understand how I left America in the first place. Before that kitchen table in Chiang Mai, my life was a different kind of quiet. My whole world for over 30 years was Flint, Michigan. I ran my own home building business. It wasn't a huge operation, but it was mine, and it was successful. I wasn't just some guy swinging a hammer. I knew the business from the foundation to the rooftop. I knew how to negotiate with suppliers, how to manage a crew, how to read a contract inside and out to make sure nobody was taking you for a ride. I built my reputation on being a straight shooter. My word was my bond, and the houses I built were solid. When I decided to retire, I thought I did everything by the book. I sold the business, sold the house my ex-wife and I had raised our kids in, and walked away with a nest egg of $450,000. On top of that, I had my pension, $1,800 a month. That was my life's work, right there in that number. But the real problem wasn't the money. It was the silence. 5 years earlier, after a 35-year marriage, my wife told me she was done. She felt we'd grown apart after the kids left. I never saw it coming. It knocked the wind right out of me. Then, 2 years ago, I retired. And that's when the loneliness became a physical thing. You go from a lifetime of purpose, of noise and deadlines and problems to solve, to waking up in a quiet house with absolutely nothing to do. You feel invisible, useless, like an old piece of equipment somebody left in a barn to rust. That feeling was always at its worst during the Michigan winters. If you've never been through one, it's hard to explain. It's a special kind of bleak. The sky is gray for months on end. The snow just keeps piling up, and the cold gets into your bones. I was sitting there in my living room, staring out the window at another gray, frozen day, just scrolling on my computer. And a video popped up. It was an American expat, a guy about my age living in Thailand. He was at an outdoor market, smiling, surrounded by all this color and life and sunshine. The contrast between that screen and my snow-covered yard was like a punch in the gut. Something inside me just broke. It became an obsession. For the next few months, all I did was research. I binged every video, read every forum, and the idea started to feel less like a dream and more like a smart, logical plan. My money, that $450,000, it could last me the rest of my life over there, and I could live well. And then there was the other part of it, the part that really hooked me. In Thai culture, they said, elders are respected. That word, respect, it echoed in my head. I hadn't felt respected in years. I felt forgotten. So in my mind, this wasn't some desperate move. I was a practical, no-nonsense businessman making a calculated decision. I was moving my assets to a place where they would be worth more. I was moving myself to a place where I would be worth more. My pride, my expertise, my ability to get things done, I was convinced those things made me immune to the mistakes other guys made. I wasn't some lonely old fool looking for a fantasy. I was Gary from Flint. I knew how the world worked. So that's how the obsession started. It wasn't an overnight thing. I'm a man who plans. I don't jump into things. After that first video, my quiet, empty days in Flint suddenly had a purpose again. I wasn't just waiting for the snow to melt anymore. I was on a mission. Every morning I'd pour a coffee and open my laptop, and my whole world became Thailand. I devoured every piece of information I could find. I was on all the expat forums, reading the good, the bad, and the ugly. I made spreadsheets. You can take the man out of the business, but you can't take the business out of the man. On one side of the spreadsheet, I had my American reality. A nest egg of $450,000. Sounds like a lot of money, right? But with the cost of everything going up back home, I knew it wasn't a guarantee for a comfortable life. Not for another 30 years anyway. My pension helped, another $1,800 a month. But even with that, things felt tight. On the other side of the spreadsheet, I had Thailand. The numbers just made sense. A man could live like a king on what I had. Not just scrape by, but truly live. My money would have power there. And more than that, I'd have a life. Sunshine, people, respect. After a few months of this, just lurking on the forums, I decided to take a more active step. I signed up for one of those dating sites, the kind specifically for meeting women in Asia. And that's when I met Nok. Her profile picture showed a woman with a kind, gentle face, a warm smile. She was 42 years old, from a city called Chiang Mai, a widow with a teenage daughter. Her messages weren't like the others. They were thoughtful. She asked about my life, my work as a builder. She said she admired a man who could create things with his own hands. For the first time in a long time, someone was seeing the best version of me. We started doing video calls. For 9 months, almost every single day, we talked. I told her about my business, my kids, the divorce. She told me about her life, her daughter, her dream of having a simple, quiet life with a good man. It felt safe. It felt real. This wasn't some wild fling. I was a 64-year-old man doing my homework. I was asking questions. I was watching for red flags. But there weren't any. All I saw was a good, family-oriented woman who wanted the same thing I did. A second chance. I kept telling myself, I'm not one of those lonely old fools you hear about, the guys who get taken for a ride. I'm Gary from Flint. I know how to read people. I know how to spot a scam. My whole life was about managing risk. After 9 months of talking to a screen, there was only one logical next step. You have to verify. You have to put boots on the ground. So I made the decision. It wasn't an emotional one, or so I told myself. It was a business decision. I booked a plane ticket for a 1-month trip to Chiang Mai. The objective was simple. Go there, meet Nok in person, and see if the connection we'd built over a computer screen was real. That flight to Chiang Mai was like flying into a different world. You step off the plane and the heat just hits you, wraps around you like a warm, wet blanket. It was nothing like the dry heat of an American summer. This was alive. And standing there, just past the gate, was Nok. I'd seen her face on a screen every day for 9 months, but seeing her in person, it was like the picture coming to life, only better. That warm, gentle smile from her photos was real. She was even more charming, more graceful than I could have imagined. There was no awkwardness. It felt like I'd known her my whole life. A few days later, she took me to meet her family. We drove out of the city into the countryside to the village where she grew up. And let me tell you, the family home. It was rough. It was a small wooden house, propped up on stilts. You could see where the rain had gotten into the walls, where the wood was starting to give way. It was crowded. Her mother, her brother, her sister, a handful of cousins, all living under this one shaky roof. But the moment I stepped out of the car, they came pouring out of the house, and it was nothing but smiles. They didn't speak a word of English, but you don't need a translator for a warm welcome. Her mother grabbed my hand, this little old woman with a grip like a vice, and just held on, patting it, chattering away to knock. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt like I was somebody. I felt home. That month was probably the best month of my life. Every day was an adventure. I was taking the whole family out for meals, and I'd pick up the tab for a dozen people, and the bill would come to maybe $50. $50. Back in Flint, that's dinner for two if you're lucky. Here, I felt like a king. I wasn't just Gary, the lonely retiree. I was a provider, a man of substance. I was generous, and it felt good. I wasn't being taken for a ride. I was the one driving. Every dollar I spent just seemed to multiply in value, buying me smiles and respect, and this feeling of belonging that I hadn't realized how badly I was starving for. It was near the end of my trip when things took a turn. The mood shifted. Knock got quiet. One evening we were sitting alone, and she just started crying. Not loud, just silent tears running down her face. She told me how much my visit meant to her family, how I was the good man she had prayed for. And then she told me what was really eating at her. She confessed how worried she was about her mother living in that house. The roof leaked right over her bed when it rained. She was afraid the whole structure wouldn't survive another rainy season. Her dream, she said, was just to give her mother and her daughter a safe, dry place to sleep. And as I'm listening to this, something in my head just clicked. I'm a builder. This is what I do. This isn't some sob story asking for a handout. This is a problem. A tangible problem with a tangible solution. A problem I was uniquely qualified to solve. The next morning I was walking around that property, not seeing a broken-down shack, but seeing a construction site. My mind was already drawing up blueprints. I could put a proper foundation here, frame it outright, build them a solid, Western-style home that would last for 100 years. The cost? A fraction of what it would be back in the States. It felt perfect. It was the ultimate way to show my love, to cement my place in this family for good. This wasn't a red flag to me. This was a green light. It was my calling. I wasn't just building a house, I was building my new life. I flew back to Michigan a few days later, but my head was still in Thailand. I wasn't sad to leave. I was on a mission. The quiet house in Flint didn't feel lonely anymore. It just felt like a temporary stop. A place I had to deal with to get back to where I belonged. I put the house on the market the day after I got back. I had a job to do. Selling my house in Flint was the easiest thing I ever did. I listed it, and within a week I had a cash offer. It felt like the universe was telling me I was on the right path, giving me a green light at every intersection. I packed up 30 years of my life into a few boxes, put them in storage, and got on a plane back to Chiang Mai, this time for good. I wasn't a tourist anymore. I was a man with a purpose. I had a family to take care of and a house to build. The first real hiccup came almost immediately. We were sitting down with a local lawyer, a guy Knock recommended, to talk about the land. And he lays it out for me, plain and simple. As a foreigner, I couldn't own land in Thailand. Period. My name could not be on the deed. For a second, a little alarm bell went off in the back of my head. But Knock was right there, holding my hand. Her mother was there, smiling that same warm, trusting smile. They explained it was completely normal. The land, they said, would just go in her mother's name. It was the family land, after all. It was just a formality, a piece of paper. It made perfect sense to them, so it had to make sense to me. I was so focused on the building, on the physical project, that the legal paperwork just seemed like a distraction. I was building my own trap and didn't even know it. I was the one who handed them the hammer and the nails. So I moved forward. I transferred the first payment into Knock's bank account. We're talking $45,000 all in. We agreed to do it in stages, tied to the project's progress. A real construction schedule. That made me feel better. It felt professional. It felt like one of my old jobs back in Flint. I wasn't just handing over a bag of cash. I was funding a project, my project. And for the next 6 months, let me tell you, I was in heaven. I was 64 years old, but I felt 30 again. I was up at sunrise every single day, out on the job site before the local crew even showed up. That smell of sawdust and fresh concrete in the morning air, it was like a drug to me. I was managing the whole thing. My decades of experience meant I could spot a problem from a mile away. When the supplier tried to send us substandard lumber, I was the one who caught it and sent it right back. When the crew wanted to cut a corner on the foundation, I was the one who showed them how to do it right, how to make it last. And you have to understand, this wasn't me just throwing my weight around. I was working alongside them, sweating under that hot Thai sun. I was teaching them things, and they respected me for it. Or at least, I thought they did. Nok would bring me lunch every day, telling me how strong I was, how she'd never met a man like me. Her mother would come out and just watch, with this look of absolute adoration. I wasn't just the money man. I was the expert. I was the boss. My practical skills, the very thing I'd built my entire life on, made me feel completely in control. The money was just a tool, but I was the one swinging the hammer. I was so busy looking at the blueprints, so focused on making sure every wall was perfectly plumb, that I couldn't see the hole I was digging for myself. When the house was finally finished, it was a masterpiece. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath, solid as a rock home with a proper kitchen and a big porch. It was the talk of the village. And the housewarming party. That was my coronation. The whole family was there, dozens of people. They were all touching the walls, marveling at the smooth paint, flushing the toilets just to see them work. And I was at the center of it all. Nok was on my arm, her daughter was calling me Dad, and her mother, she toasted me as the family's savior. In that moment, standing on that porch I had designed and built, I felt like I had finally done it. I had beaten the loneliness. I had escaped the ghost life I was living back in Michigan. I had used my money and my skills to build a fortress of love and respect. I had it all figured out. I wasn't some lonely old fool. I was Gary from Flint. And I had won. The morning after the housewarming, I woke up feeling like a king in my own castle. I walked out into the kitchen I had designed, and there was Nok's mother already at the table, a big smile on her face. She motioned for me to sit down. Nok was there too, looking as happy as I'd ever seen her. She poured me a cup of tea. It was all so perfect. Domestic. Her mother started talking in Thai, this long, cheerful stream of words. Nok was translating, smiling. My mother says thank you again, Papa, she said. She says it is the most beautiful house in the whole village, so strong. You are such a good builder. I just nodded, feeling proud. I took a sip of my tea. And then, Nok kept translating without missing a beat. She says, her son is very happy for us. He sees how good you build. And he is a good boy. He has a family. He needs a house too. I put my cup down. I looked at Nok, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for her to laugh and say her mom was just kidding. But she didn't laugh. Her smile was still there, bright and expectant. She continued. So, we were all talking last night. It is a good plan. You can rest for a few weeks, and then we can find a good piece of land for my brother's house. You can start building next month. The air went out of the room. I just stared at her. My mind was scrambling, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Next month? I turned to Nok, my eyes pleading with her. Nok, what is she talking about? Nok's smile finally faltered. She looked confused, like I was the one who wasn't making sense. The new house. For my brother. It is a good idea, yes? You build so well. And that was it. That was the moment. The floor dropped out from under me. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. A work order. I wasn't their papa. I wasn't a hero. I was a contractor who had just finished one job and they were already lining up the next one. My voice came out quiet, colder than a Michigan winter. No. Just that one word. The smiles on their faces vanished. Instantly. Knock's mother looked at her asking a question. Knock said something back in a sharp, low tone. The warmth in the room, that beautiful feeling of belonging I'd been chasing for years, it just evaporated. Her mother stood up, said something I didn't need a translator to understand, and walked out of the room. Knock looked at me, her face like a stone. "You make my mother lose face," she said. Not sad, not disappointed, angry. "Are you serious?" I asked her. "You can't be serious." She just stood up. "I have to go with my mother." She walked out of the kitchen, out of the house I had built for her, and didn't look back. I waited for a text that afternoon, an apology, an explanation. Nothing came. The next day I sent her a message. It went unread. I tried calling. The phone rang and rang. By the end of the week I knew. It was over. The whole thing. The family. The love. The respect. It was all tied to the project. And the project was over. I was sitting alone in a brand new $45,000 house, in a country where I didn't speak the language, completely and utterly alone. I had never felt so invisible in my entire life. That house I built, by the way, I never spent another night in it. I couldn't. It felt like a mausoleum. I walked away from it, from the village, from Knock. I walked away from $45,000 of concrete and paint and another $15,000 in living expenses and gifts. All told, it was a $60,000 lesson. Today I'm not in a 3-bedroom house in Chiang Mai. I'm in a small rented apartment in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The Michigan winters were too much to go back to. My nest egg took a serious hit, so my retirement is now semi-retirement. I work part-time as a site supervisor for a local developer. It's good work. It feels honest. I'm starting over, humbled, and a whole lot smarter. And what I learned, I want to give to you for free. First, your professional skills mean absolutely nothing in this game. I thought because I was a successful contractor, because I knew how to build a solid house, that I was in control. I saw a problem, a leaky roof, and I thought my skills were the solution. But the real problem wasn't the house. It was my loneliness. And I was trying to fix an emotional problem with lumber and concrete. Your expertise in your old life doesn't make you an expert in a new culture. It just makes you a more confident fool. Second, if the foundation of your relationship is built on you being the provider, the whole thing will collapse the second you turn off the money. When Nok told me her family needed a house, I didn't see a red flag. I saw a green light, a chance to be the hero, the man with the answers. I made myself the solution to their biggest problem. And when they came back with the next problem, the brother's house, and I said no, my role was over. I wasn't their papa anymore. I was just a retired ATM that had stopped dispensing cash. And this is the most important lesson of all. If you cannot put your name on it, you do not own it. Ever. When that lawyer told me the land had to be in her mother's name, I treated it like a minor inconvenience, a piece of paper. That piece of paper was everything. It was the legal foundation for my entire loss. Don't ever let anyone convince you that the law is just a formality. The law is the only thing you have when the smiles stop. I'm not telling you to avoid Thailand. It's a beautiful place with beautiful people. I'm telling you to understand that your loneliness, your desire to be a provider, to be the man again, that's a loaded gun. And it can be pointed right back at you. Before you send a single dollar, before you promise to build anything bigger than a birdhouse, ask yourself the question I was too proud to ask. Am I being loved for who I am, or for what I can build for them? If you're an older guy thinking of making a move like I did, you need to watch the video on your screen now. It's called The 5 Financial Red Flags I Ignored, and it might just save you your life savings.